I'm going to do a video here on the pacemaker. This is a Medtronic version, just to give a little bit of basic information about how these function. First thing you'll notice here is you have the power button up here. You have these knobs, and then you have a bottom section, and it has one knob. When you turn this on, it's going to read 80, 10, and 10 right off the bat. As soon as you turn it on, you're going to notice the green lights beeping here. Blinking, actually. And so that means you're pacing right now. So, this is a nice feature where you can emergently pace somebody in a hurry. Obviously, nothing's hooked up, so it's not actually pacing. But another thing you'll notice is down here at the bottom, you have the mode that you're in, the DDD mode. And then you have below that, well, it just went away, but it's different modes to choose from. So let's talk about the DDD and what that means. All right, so the first letter, the D in this case, represents the chamber that is being paced. So which chamber is getting electricity? In this case, both chambers. D is dual, so both of them are getting paced. Next, the second letter, also a D, and that's which chamber is getting sensed. That is to say, what chamber that the heart is sensing its own, the pacer is sensing the heart's own natural activity. In this case, both atrial and ventricular. The third letter, also a D, represents what the pacer does when it sees the heart's own natural activity. So this is dual. So is it going to inhibit if it notices the patient's own beat, or is it going to trigger if it recognizes either a delay or that the patient does not have a beat? So those are the things that DDD does, and those are the ways that you read the first, second, and third letter. If you wanted to change the mode, you will come to this green arrow, unlock it, and then you're going to go to the very bottom, which right here says mode selection. So you'll use the arrows to go down and hit the enter button. And then you're going to be given a selection of the different modes. For the most part, you're going to use the DDD mode, or you're going to use the VVI mode. These other ones are used very less, and I'm not going to go over them really. So the VVI is going to be, the ventricular is the chamber that is sensed, the chamber that is paced. It's getting the electricity. The ventricular is the second letter, is getting sensed. And the third letter is what it does if it notices the heart's own activity, and that is it's going to inhibit or not fire. So let's talk about failure to capture, failure to sense. Failure to capture is when there is a pacer spike but no heartbeat. Pacer spike, no heartbeat. So what are you going to do about that? Well, if you look back at your pacemaker box, you can always go up on your juice or the MA. So in this case, let's say we have somebody that is DDD. You can go up on your A after you unlock it. You can go up on your V. And you can continue to do that until you get a pacer spike that has a heartbeat behind it, or a electrical beat for the patient behind it. Okay, so what if they are failing to sense? In other words, what if the patient has their own heartbeat, but the pacemaker is firing anyway? And let's say you have it in VVI mode. So let's just put it on VVI mode here. And we can do that by just going down arrow and hitting enter. Okay, so now I have a rate of 80 and I got a ventricular output of 15. I am in VVI mode. And that means it's supposed to be inhibited when it sees the patient's own native heartbeat, but it is still firing. What can I do? Well, now I can go to the sensitivity, which is this bottom section. Normally, I'm going to move this all the way to the left, which means the ventricular sensitivity is very high. So I'm going to try to show you what that means using a pen and paper. Okay, so here is my paper. Here is my pen. This white piece of paper represents what the pacemaker sees, and this pen represents the patient's heartbeat. So if my sensitivity is all the way down, all my pacemaker sees is it cannot see the patient's heartbeat. So when I lower the sensitivity, guess what? My pen shows up. That means the pacer now sees the heartbeat and it says inhibit, do not fire. I see a heartbeat. But if that sensitivity is up, it can't see that. So that's what happens with the sensitivity. And if you have a patient with a failure to sense, what you want to do is come down to the sensitivity. Let me zoom in on that a little bit. And this number on the left is going to go down as I go to the right. So I will use my knob here and I will turn that, and you'll see that number go down. And as that goes down, you should reach a point where the pacer quits firing because it starts seeing the patient's own rhythm. I will say though that sometimes you're going to have somebody where the sensitivity, you'll turn it all the way down and there'll still be pacer spikes firing, and there's not really much you can do at that point. So the next thing we want to look at is the wires that are associated with this. So let's zoom out of here. How do I connect a patient? Okay, so I'm going to be showing you the case where a patient has epicardial wires. Okay, so here is my epicardial wires. I have 2 of them. And if you want to pace the patient, you need to hook these up somehow into your pacer box. There is a Medtronic version that has holes right here that you can plug these wires into in an emergency and quickly pace. This particular version does not have that, so what we'll need is another type. So what I have here is a disposable version. This has a locking mechanism. I don't know if you can see it right here. And so you can lock it or unlock it. And then when you put these wires in, you just press down on one side, put your needle in or your wire in, and let go. And flip it over and do the same thing here. And then these should be tight in there. Once you do that, then you can take your plug-in and plug it in. Blue goes to blue in most cases, but so this would be for an atrial. There is a white cable as well, and that would go into the ventricular. Now, I don't have wires for both of these, but let's just say we were going to, if we were going to use ventricular, you could actually, if these were ventricular wires here and you put this, even though the blue is going into white, as long as these are ventricular wires, it's going to do the same thing. But anyway, that's how you would plug it in, and that's how you would adjust your settings. One last thing I want to show you is how to cap your wires. And so we're going to reverse course on this. You're going to press down, pull out, press down, pull out. Take your wires. And I like to use this little blunt tip. And so you can put the wires in here, either one at a time or both together. And then you're going to put the blunt tip on top of that to hold it in place. It's now snug. And then you can choose to wrap this around. And usually If they're epicardial coming out of the chest, you can just tape that to the patient's chests. So I hope that helps get some pacemaker basics down.